Oh yeah. It's your man Hans Nobi here with the 12th episode of Capitalism and Art. You know what it is. If you've been here before, act like it. If not, it's all good. Let me introduce you. We're gonna play a little music to vibe out a little bit, set up, and then we're gonna get right into this whole reason why you should or shouldn't re-record your album. Let's go.
Baby, know you drive me crazy, thinking I'm your lady, but I'm just your bartender, babe. I've been in the bar, working all night for credit cards. You came in and stole my day, find that never really happens to me. I get this feeling, this tension overheating, the signs that I've been reading. It's me who needs a shielding. Yes, it's me who needs a shielding. You're so damn cool, boy, the way you move, boy. My mind I lose, boy, cause it's not just me who sees this too, boy, it's true. Any love or feelings I feel it real. It's enough, I give up, I'm gonna hand you the bill. At the end of the night, you're gonna with me. Then you go run out and hide into there's something to drink. Can't fight the feeling of when I'm meant to be. I'm craving you crazy, but I'm just a fantasy. Some things you don't understand. As a man, you can't command my attention and the man that I meet you after my last day. At the end of the night, you're gonna with me. Then you go run out and hide into there's something to drink. Can't fight the feeling of when I'm meant to be. I'm craving you crazy, but I'm just a fantasy. I'm just your bartender, just your bartender, just your bartender, tender, babe. Just your bartender, just your bartender, just your bartender, tender, babe.
Yes, sir. That was Bartender Babe by Nasira, produced by the one and only Hans Nobi. You know the guy. You're familiar with him a little bit, right? You're a little familiar with that guy. In fact, let me go ahead and show you his face so we can get right into this, man. What's good? What's good? What's going on? It's your man Hans Nobi again. About to get right into it. Hold on, y'all. Let me get set up. It's something I kind of wanted to do for a little while. Play a little music. Play a little, you know what I'm saying? A little something. Little something. Make sure this is coming through. Is that loud? Is that loud? Yo, test. Hold on, let me turn this down a little bit more, man. Oh, I see what it's doing. Hold on, y'all. I'm gonna get this right. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of hard. Not gonna lie, it's kind of hard, man. Kind of hard, man. I used to DJ a lot, so you know. But anyway, man, let's get right into it, bruv. I'm not gonna take. Why am I gonna take a? Actually, this is gonna be one of those episodes. I promise you, it's gonna be a full hour. I can tell because this is something I've been wanting to touch base on for like a little while. Oh, hold on, let me stop that. This is something I've been wanting to touch base on for like a little while. And let me pull this up, get this out the way. Y'all need to see this. This is not what you came for. But all right. First, Again, this is Thursday. The week's been going very good, man. So I want to get kind of nice. So, I actually went to the bottle store. I got a small bottle of this Casamigos. I got a small bottle of it, and the reason why was because one of my homegirls, Bree, back in Houston, she said she hates it. She's over it. She hates the fact that everywhere she goes, that people are always ordering Casamigos, and I'm a tequila. I'm into tequila. I wouldn't say I'm an aficionado, but I'm into it enough. Like I've had this, I've had Casa Azul, Terramana, and a couple other ones. So I just wanted to try it out, see what it is. So I wasn't too impressed, but for today's episode, I'm gonna try it a little bit. I have my drum there. Put that over to the side. Take a little swiggy swig. 1800 Don Julio. I'm not gonna lie, fam. I'm not too much of a 1800 is dope. I'm not a fan of Jose Cuervo, and I haven't had Don Julio yet. Mm, mm, mm. It's not bad. It's actually not bad. I'm not too much of a fan of it, but it's not bad. This is what you would call a blanco. Yeah, it's a blanco. I'm not gonna get into the whole tequila thing because this is not what you're here for. But what I will do, I will dive into this whole thing. So take one more swig, then we get right into it, man. And if you're watching, if you're watching a replay, if you're watching with me now, take a little sip. Because I've noticed some of y'all join the live, but you won't join the chat. Don't be weird, bro. I know you're there. I can see the stats. I know you're there. And a lot of y'all watching don't like and subscribe. Don't do that. Don't be weird. Subscribe. Hit the like button. Subscribe. Take it from professional. Oh, please. All right. So what I want to get into today is why you should or shouldn't record your album if you are coming off from a label. And this doesn't just pertain to being on a major label. If you're with a boutique label, you may want to look at doing this or not, but I'm going to address the reason why you should and shouldn't. Now this all came up because Taylor Swift had to re-record her album, right? So if you're not familiar with the Taylor Swift situation, Taylor Swift is going to re-record these albums. So Fearless, Taylor Swift, and I think there was one more. I think there was a third one. I guess Speak Now. Maybe it's Speak Now. Maybe. Is it? Oh, and Beautiful Eyes. So anyway, her situation is a little different, and the reason why I say that is because she is re-recording her album because she has gotten fisticuffs with Scooter Braun and with Big Machine Records in regards to like that whole catalog being sold and her not being included into that deal. Now there are plenty of content creators that have actually dived into why she should have, what she should do and what she shouldn't do and everything else. I'm not gonna get into it because there's more than enough content out there for it. So why add to what's already out there? But what I wanted to do was actually bring it into Ashanti. So Ashanti just recently announced that she's going to be re-recording her debut album from Murder Inc., which I think is the self-titled album Ashanti, which is crazy. It was nearly 20 years ago. But she said that she does own her masters, but she's still going to re-record it. And I dove into like the reason why, because some of these articles are now popping up saying why that she's re-recording. I still don't get it, but that's maybe I'm missing something, or maybe there's some context that I'm missing. But what she was saying that she wanted to do here is that even though she said it's an amazing feeling to sonically make feel the same rawness, but 22 spin it on and sonically make it crispy, right? So I get that. Now with her, I'm a big concern. Now I'm gonna tell you the reason why. The reason why I am concerned is for a plethora of reasons. I'm concerned because that album came out in 2002, 3, I believe, and I know for a fact that some of the equipment and compressors that they use for that album no longer exists. I know they recorded some of those tracks at Quad, and I know that Irv at one point was using SP1200 on a few of those tracks. Now you can still buy an SP1200. You can, if you're not familiar with what that is. So SP1200 is a sampler. It's one of these big, huge, clunky things, and you see the price for it, right off the bat, $10,000. It still has that old price, but basically, you would put a floppy disk or SD card. Did they have SD cards back then? TJ, let me know if they had SD cards back then. But you would put a card in here, and you would basically break up to sample by the time. So you had like these 8 slots, much what you have with this machine over here. Right, so we have a lot more pads, and you can control the volume, you can control the envelope and attack or whatever. But you would run this through. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is you do have some emulators. You have like Tape Machine. You can have like the J37 from Waves. You can do certain things where you can emulate those sounds. But the problem is that you are still running a code, and I'll kind of dive into it a bit more. But running a code meaning that sample is not gonna have the same warmth. So in other words, like if I chop up a sample on a vinyl record and then I put it through here, I am digitizing it, right? Because in order for me to turn these knobs and say, okay, cool, this is the start of the wave, this is the end of the wave, and whatever, it's going to digitize it, which means it's going to process it, right? So if you take it through here, there's a certain processing that this equipment does that this doesn't. No matter what I do to this, even if I update the firmware like crazy, which it already is up to date, and still chop those samples, there's certain artifacts that I can't emulate because I don't have the SP1200 that was made in the 70s, right? Yeah, okay, cool. So with that being said, right off the bat, that means some of her singles that use this piece of equipment, if they don't use it again, they're not gonna have the same feeling. The reason why that's going to be so important is because for the, let me turn this up a little bit. So with the reason why that's going to be important is for the, I hope I'm not coming in too, okay. The reason why that's going to be important is because the average listener doesn't know about this. So if you re-record a record, right, from 99, 2000, 2001, whatever, because Quiet as Kept, Ashanti was writing for Murder Inc. like 97, 98, 99 when she was still running high school track. And so we know that these records that she wrote at that time meant something to her. So I'm gonna dive into the whole thing, so I don't run around. Okay, cool. So that I don't kind of like do this whole thing with bouncing around. But the reason why I want to point this is just put a pin here. Those sonics are not going to be in the new recording. So no matter what you do, all the equipment's been updated and we've lost some of that. That's why, like now, so one of the companies I interned for was Alto NYC, right? So they sell boutique. Let's see where we are. It's Alto Music. Sorry. And shout out to Madly for hiring me for this. So I used to intern at Alto before. They always had an office in Brooklyn, but they used to work at a penthouse. That's how I got my internship at penthouse as well. But they used to use the B room for the boutique equipment. I would do the social media and post pictures or whatever. But if you look at these, I mean, just look at these preamps, right? So if you look at some of this stuff, right, you're gonna see some vintage equipment. But if you look at the price, the reason why it's so sky high because you're looking at vintage equipment, right? So if you're looking to get that sound, like that exact sound, you're gonna have to pay a pretty penny. I don't know what Ashanti's budget is. That's none of my business. But what the point I'm trying to say here is that if you're going independent and you're going away from your label and you want to do this on your own, you're going to have to reinvest in that equipment to catch those same sonics. No matter how much stuff will run inbox, I'm not gonna be able to capture everything that's coming out of here because how do I put this? As I'm speaking into this mic, so the mic takes the wave signal. I'm getting way too deep. Stop me. But it's just not gonna be the exact same, right? So as I'm recording into this mic, it's going through a preamp, right? It's going into this preamp. I need to buy a new one. It's going to this Focusrite, and then it's going into Streamlabs, and then it's coming out of YouTube, right? So all that is a different process. If I take this same mic and then run it through one of these, it's gonna sound different. This is what I'm trying to say. So if Ashanti's trying to capture the same sonics and rawness and feel of this and make it crispy, you'll do that, fine, but you're going to lose the luster of that sound. Those mean the kick drums are not going to be as warm or as buff. She's going to rely heavily on digital processing and upscaling. Exactly. And if you notice, everywhere, everyone's trying to downgrade their samples, right? So the whole thing is when you take your sample at 4,800 hertz and then bring it down to 10,000, is you're trying to re-emulate what was coming out of this piece of equipment. That's the whole purpose. So if you're trying to do that and you're doing it digitally, it's not gonna sound the same. Which means no matter how much they try to EQ and everything else, it's certain artifacts in there. So like for instance, if there's a sample in there that Irv did and he cut it to a certain point where there was like a little bit of a clip in there, it's not going to be in the album. To you, the musician, like, that's not that big a deal, right? To the listener, to the untrained ear, they're not gonna be able to know that that's the reason why they don't like the record. That's the point I'm trying to make. So that's the first part of this whole thing that I believe is going to be the problem in re-recording the album. For Taylor Swift, though, going back to Taylor Swift, right? Taylor's first album came out, let's see, 2006, 8, 17. I guarantee you, we still have a lot of this stuff was inbox. Those compressors are probably still around. And if they're not, there may be like one or two. But for the most part, like when people went hard on Nexus was like 2008, right? Because that's when, yeah. So if they used, was it Blue by Papin? What's the name of that plugin? Hold on. Blue Papin plugin. Help me out, guys. What is it? Rob Papin. So this plugin here, right, which is actually the first plugin I actually used to make a lot of stuff that I did for my first beat tape. This is still around. For Ashanti, it's like I don't know. So that's the first thing that is I don't know. I don't know if she's gonna be able to capture that same sound. I don't know if she's gonna capture that same sound. Which brings me to my next point. And I addressed this in a Facebook group. If you're an artist and you re-record your album and you don't have the same... So actually, before we go, let's go into the songwriting. So I believe Ashanti, Murder Inc. first album. I just want to see the year. 2001, 2002, which means more than likely these records recorded in 2000. Recorded in 2001, 2002, which means these records probably were written anywhere from 99 to 2000, right? And if we're looking at this and she's trying to sing that again, I think Ashanti is a pretty good vocalist for the most part. I think she's a pretty good vocalist. The only issue is you're not 17, 18 anymore. So if you're looking to redo this, are you gonna have the same feeling? Because the ex that broke up with you or that cheated on you at that time, you've grown and matured past this. So are you maybe singing with that same feeling? Because we've all had our heart broken, and at the time you grow past it, but you've hardened yourself more than likely, or you may have gotten to a point where like you're totally healed. So if you're gonna re-record this and give it to me, are you gonna have the same emotion, that same naiveness of? Because think about it, when you wrote that record, the reason why you wrote the record is you didn't think that he would do what he did. Now you're just like, yeah, I mean that's what guys do. A lot of guys cheat. So you're not coming from the, oh my god, how could this happen to me? You're not coming from the perspective of like, yeah, shit happens. So are you gonna be able to sing with the same emotion? This kind of goes with the whole Lauryn Hill issue I have in regards to like her performing her records. The Fugees just performed up here in Manhattan. About a month ago. I had 2 free tickets. So, a little story. So I signed up for Global Citizen, and I signed up for the 2 free tickets, and I actually got the 2 free tickets, and I couldn't find anyone to go with because it was such late notice. Like they literally said, like, I think Wednesday evening I applied, and Thursday morning I found out I won. There was no one that was available, and I was like, I want to go, but like, are they gonna show up in time or whatever? So I wound up not going, which I kind of regret a little bit, but whatever. But from what I've seen from Lauryn Hill is that, yeah, you can reperform the record in these different sonics and different BPMs, but it's just not the same, right? So there's a reason why certain artists don't perform some of their old works. It's like, fam, I'm way past that. So for her, I don't know if we're gonna get that same feeling that we did back in 2001 and 2. That's my concern. Now we're gonna get into some other stuff. Now we're gonna get into some other stuff. All right. So that's done. So the next thing I want to touch base on is, so that's the creative side of it, because again, this show is called Capitalism and Art. So now let's get into the capitalism part. Ashanti, if you re-record these albums, let me look up something, because Murder Inc. was by, let's see something. Hold on, let me look something up. Okay. What I was looking for was what publishing company that she was signed to, or they were signed to at the time. The reason why I'm looking that up is because I'm curious if you're looking to integrate your new music, right? So the whole purpose of re-recording the album is so that you can own your masters. And there's a give and there's a take, right? There's a good and a bad. The good is that now you own your masters, which means you now get the huge cut of the profit. So if the album does get integrated or implemented to like a film or television or commercial, you're going to get a bulk of those royalties because you own the masters, right? Because you're licensing your music out to other entities to play your music, which is great. However, what happens if you re-record a record that was a mega hit and a smash, and the remix or the remake is not nearly near as good as the original? I give you an example. So for Cisco, he re-recorded a thong song, right? So I'm not gonna play because I don't want any more copyright infringements. But let's see. So this is recent, right? 4 years ago in music. No, this was back and better. It's not better. Okay, so this is 4 years ago. So the thong song, if you were alive, listen, let me tell you something. I'm not gonna lie. That and besides Prince's that and besides Juvie's Back That Ass Up, Prince's Party Like in 1999, and maybe a few others, this may very well be top 5 hit records of the 90s. And I can say that with confidence because I was alive then. and I was in 7th or 8th grade. I was in 8th grade when this dropped, and I just remember just the pandemonium of this record. You think you have seen a smash, man? Listen, especially is an R&B smash. Ooh, that's the thing. Like we haven't had an R&B smash here in the States in a very long time. Until like an R&B smash. Um, it's when there's an art. No, I'm sorry. My apologies. My apologies. LMA when it was with Boot Up. Like the reason why you heard that shit every fucking where is because R&B just translates a lot better. Because if you have an R&B smash, that means that record can work in the summer and the winter time. Which means if you release it during the spring, and all the college kids go nuts for it, and then the summer it get played at all the parties for the slow dancing, and then the winter when the strings really go up, oh my god, it's you'll be able to live. LMA be able to live off that record forever. Like R&B smash is just different. A rock smash is like cool. A hip hop smash is like cool. But there's nothing like or like a quirky dance song like those two. Like it's different. But if you were alive at the time, you know what this record did. And boy, man, but here's the thing. You've re-recorded it, right? And I'm not going to play it. You have to listen to it on your own. It's not the same. It's not, it's the strings are not there like they were. The chord progression doesn't hit like it was. It's just, it's not it. And what I mean by, and this is no disrespect to Cisco at all. I get what he was doing. I get the play. But, and maybe it's just not for me because I'm not in 8th grade anymore. But this just isn't, it doesn't have the same feeling. So here's my question. If you are an artist, if you're an artist, and let's say this is one of your records, and then you go to a television studio, film studio, commercial, video games, or whatever, and you're like, hey, I want to pitch this and integrate it. How many of those mega studios or mega television media companies are going to say yes when they've already had a strong relationship with the publishing company that owns the original? Because if I have a film, let's say I have a film starring John Cena, Halle Berry, we'll bring back Nicolas Cage a little bit, and let's say, I don't know, one of the cast members of Squid Games, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do when someone comes from a hot brand new show. You need one of them in your movie, even though it may not even fit. But let's say I have a film I'm fairly confident is going to do very well for the summer. And let's say I get a phone call from Cisco saying, hey, I want to integrate this. I keep saying integrate. I want to pitch this to be the theme song for your film. Oh, that's great. It's a beach film, this, that, and the third. Let me run this by our music director. Call you back. And then let's say 20 minutes later, the company that owns the original calls me and said, hey, we want to pitch this. Now I'm in a pickle because let's say within that film, I can tell the demographic is going to be late 20s to like 40s, right? Those kids were alive to listen to this record. And I know that if I play the Sonics from this original record with the premiere of my movie, I know I'm going to get their attention. So you see where I'm going with this? So if I have this new one and it doesn't sound as good as this, but let's say it does, right? But the demo loves this version over this version. What do you think the television studio is going to do? Now, this, he could probably work with like a brand new demographic if he focuses on the 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, right? Which would be a little weird because his age, because I don't know how that's going to look with him performing at college campuses at his age. That's just a different conversation. So, again, it's no disrespect to Cisco at all. It's just that These are the things that I worry about, because if him and his agent are trying to pitch a new one, but the old one is still getting radio play every so often somewhere in the country, you're not competing with yourself. You're competing with the label and the relationships they have with these studios, with these media companies. So with Universal Studios, Tyler Perry Studios, and so on and so forth. What do you to do? So it's just something that I was thinking about in regards to that. I'll dive into it a little bit more here in a second. But I'm curious because, and I don't live in LA. I only go to LA to visit, but I'm just curious because I just wonder, what position are you putting yourself in if you're remaking the master and it doesn't sound the same? So I get why Shanti wants to make that stuff updated and crispy, but she's going back to re-record it to keep the same sign so she can pitch that, which is weird because she already owns the masters. But again, we don't know what the deal entails. In Cisco's case, it doesn't sound like the original, so it doesn't have the same impact. Plus, not only that, you gotta account for time, what was going on at the time. This was like this video. You gotta understand, when this video came on, this thing ran uncut. So we had. So at the tail end this, because again, this was a mega smash. The next video we had was Tip Drill and Pimp Juice. Like, if it wasn't for this video, you wouldn't be able to get those other two videos on there. So it had even a bigger impact. So that's what really made it like, oh my God, have you seen the video? And people fell in love with the song and this, that, and the third. And it had orchestral remixes and everything else. This is not going to be able to live up to that because it's not 1999 anymore. It's 2021, 2022. So I'm just wondering. I'm hope I'm wrong, but I can see a movie studio choosing the original version over the new version. Just some thoughts. And it may not. They may say, Cisco, we love you, let's do it. But I don't know. And then if you do that, what is that doing? How's that affecting your relationship with that label if they sound like the hottest new brand artist and you need their music in your film? You see what I'm saying? It can get real messy. It can get real messy. Okay. So I'm going to get into the next part. I'm going to get into the next part. Oh, nice. So let me get out of this. So here's the last thing I want to touch base on. And this is probably going to take the rest of the time. If you're doing this and you're not a Taylor Swift, where your brand is big enough for a movie studio or film studio, video game, whatever, to run with you, because it's like, well, you're bigger than a label, so we just roll with you, and it's direct. Like, I don't have to go to a third party and then go to the label. If you're not that big, how does this benefit you? You see what I'm saying? So going back here, Cisco, who are you signed with right now? Give me a second here. Who are you signed with right now? And Wikipedia's not always right, by the way. He's with Empire. Okay, so he's with Gods in them. Okay, so Empire is a great label, right? I encourage people to check it out. From what I've seen, they've done pretty good work, and they've had some pretty good hits, as you can see here. They had Taste by Tiger. They had All the Way Up with Fat Joe, Remy Ma. They have like a few, Broccoli by Drum. They've had a few, like, right, Gas Pedal. Yeah, that shit was hard. They're out in Frisco, right? So they have some sort of relationship with those imprints out in LA. But do we know, and this is none of my business, but this is a question that I want you to think about. Do we know if Empire has a better relationship with Atlantic Records. You're talking about a label that's been around since 1947, before most of our parents, and in some cases grandparents, were even born. I know Craig Coleman. I've heard that name plenty of times. If you know, you know. You know, he's a little bit of a beast. How can you compete if he owns the master? We're just saying hypothetically, if he owns the original and not, and the reason why I didn't pick Def Jam, because I'm not trying to be messy, but I just want you to think, with all the resources he has underneath Atlantic alone, can do, wouldn't that give Atlantic more leverage over Empire? What, you know, again, it's none of my business, but I just want you guys to think about this stuff. We're not here to be messy, but I just want you guys to think about this stuff. This is the stuff that I think about whenever I see these deals, or I see these moves that the artists are making. I'm always thinking about the long term and how does this affect the business, and what's the chess play here is what I'm asking. Is that if you're looking to re-record your master, you own it, you're now putting yourself in a position where you're in the same tier as a Larry June, like Tom Walker before he got signed. What I mean by that is you're no longer in those rooms because you don't have the invite. So what does that do for you long term? So that means, are you building from the ground up again? And if that's a play, kudos, I'm all with it. But I wonder, what position does that put you in when you now have this new master? Because rock bands have spoken about this a lot, about how they can't quite capture the feeling that they had when they recorded their album in like '96, even if it's the early 2000s. Who's to say that they didn't use antiquated equipment and now you can't get that? And if you're independent and you have a budget of, let's say, $50,000 to re-record your album, and you're looking at this sort of equipment to capture it, and it's like, oh yeah, we did a SP1200, then we had an ASR 10, right? Okay, cool. So that's 1300. So that's so let's look. So that's okay. So we'll say after tax is 10,000. Let's see. So after that, we'll say it's gonna bring you what, up to 11.4, right? So right there, then let's say what's that German compressor that we had in the beat room at Penthouse? Let's see, German. Let me look for it, and then I'll let y'all go. German compressor music. Let's see if I can find it. This is it. So right there, out of your budget, right? So let's say 23, right? So that's brings, let's say 15,000. So out of 50, you're already down to 35,000 for your album if you're independent. If you're trying to recapture, plus you're not talking about mixing, paying prior for the mixing, make sure you have a good engineer, because you can go to sound better and that's good, but I know those guys aren't cheap. Mastering, and then you got to promote it. So let's say all in all, for your album, after that, let's say you have $25,000 to promote your album. You're now competing against someone that has a $500,000 budget for your old. And I can see, not saying it would happen, but let's talk about it. I can see somebody being messy over here because you didn't re-sign with them, and then pushing the original master because they have the budget, because it's nothing but an email, and using that to push your new one your old one to totally just take out your new one, where people just like, what's this, the remix? I don't know, some DJ creators like, no, it's mine, and it's like, oh, I don't like that, right? Because one thing you can't beat in nostalgia, the new Thong song, I get it, but you won't be able to capture me being at Holland Middle School in Southwest Houston and watching for the first time. I'm talking about like the nerdiest chicks. I'm talking about like the Chinese, Pakistani Nigerian, Hispanic chicks, even the nerdiest of chicks from those races lose their damn mind and start twerking in front of teachers. We're talking about 13, 14-year-olds, and we're walking around like our button ups. Of course, everything's too big because it's 2000 and we didn't have any style, nor do we have, we couldn't pay for our own clothes like that because no one could get a job. But you would like, I know everyone who was around. I'm talking about like the 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, even college. Like when that song dropped, it was different. So every time we hear that, dun, 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 it automatically takes it back there. Like you can't beat that feeling. You can't recreate that. So if you're trying to recreate that, wouldn't you have to use this equipment? Because the inbox is just not going to cut it. Look at this. This thing is going for 14. Which is ridiculous, but look at it. It's going for 14. So if you're trying to recapture that, you're going to have to use these pieces of equipment. Plus, only that, there's something to be said, and then I'll wrap up here in a second. There's something to be said about the naiveness of a creative, which allows you to create the music that lasts longer. A lot of beat makers experience this too. So you're cooking up and you hear a sound, and then you should start rolling with. So laying the drums, this, that, and the third, or maybe you're a vocalist, you're writing a top line. And everyone has experienced this. Hasn't there been a point where you tried something new because you just got inspired to do it and it came out super dope? You're like, yo, what is this? And then you learned about it. Then you learned about the science behind it. Then you learned the music theory behind it. And now you try to recreate something like that, but you just can't. The reason why, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying about Ashanti's first album, right? It's like, the reason why you sung those heartbreaking songs so passionately was because in your mind, in your 14-year-old mind to 17, whoever you were dating at the time, you never had a thought about him cheating on you or messing around on you or you guys breaking up. It wasn't even a thing because it's kind of like the whole thing. It's kind of like the whole alien conversation. Like you can speak to someone and be like, yo, aliens are real. And then someone can go, no, they're not. It's like, how do you know? Have you seen one? No. But I know that the universe is vast, right? So there's this thing where you're in this middle place where there's a bit naivete, but there's a little knowledge where you're just like, I don't think they exist, but it's a possibility. So you're kind of like here. To a 6-year-old kid, that doesn't exist. So when they play with the toys and everything else, the reason why they can go there is because there's not even a thought of a possibility of the alien not existing or that there's a world where that's fiction. So when she wrote those lyrics and she sung those songs, she sang from this shock that was a possibility. Now here you are. It's 20 years later, you've matured, you've been in multiple relationships, you've grown, you've healed. And now you're trying to capture that feeling and it's just not going to be the same. So that's why I think in this case, maybe Ashanti shouldn't. Maybe she just keep her masters and just roll with it. In regards to Taylor Swift, she has the advantage because Taylor Swift's first album, hold on, came out in 2006. I have plugins that people were using back in 2006. So it's not so much just playing the guitar, because you can replay those notes, right? If you practice it long enough, sure, maybe there's a certain way you hit the guitar that kind of gave it a twang, that gave it a feeling. But for the most part, she can get away with it because her first album came out in 2006. She has a much better chance of capturing that feeling rather than Ashanti, who recorded her album back in 2000, 2001, 2002. That's all I'm saying. That's pretty much all I'm saying, man. It's so if you are an indie artist and you are getting off your label, and you want to re-record, if the album that you're looking to re-record is recent, go for it. If it's not, if you're part of like these legacy bands, like what's my favorite band? Star Sailor, who were like late 90s or whatever, you may not want to, because I forgot the name of the producer. He just died. He went to jail for shooting some chick or whatever. But Peter something or whatever. He's gone. So you can't recreate that sound. So their sophomore album, they couldn't recreate if they wanted to, because the guy that created it has passed. Like, we know what the technique is. We know what the wall of sound is. Matter of fact, let me look it up. See, wall of sound. I'm be late for my meeting. Sound producer. What was it? No. Sound. And then I'm out of here. I told you it was going to take the whole hour. Phil Spector. Phil Spector's dead. So you can't recreate that sound. You can get all of his equipment. You go right into the studio in LA. You can't recreate that sound because you wasn't there when he was with Ike and Tina Turner when he said, let's do this. Because he knew he was competing against Motown. So what do you do? But that's it. That's what I wanted to address, man. Again, if you like the content I'm putting out, like and subscribe, man. Again, try the Casamigos. It's good. It's okay. It's the taste is a bit too sharp for me, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. But anyway, let me know in the comments your thoughts. Hopefully you got something from it. It's Thursday, October 14th here in New York City. I cannot find my mouse, or the thing died. That is not cool. Really? There we go. Okay. Yeah, man, it is kind of cool here in New York. It's about a cool little 75 degrees. I'm probably gonna go to this meeting, and then I have a meeting after that, and then you know what it is, man. But anyway, if you got something from this, let me know. Like, subscribe, share. I'll holla at y'all. See y'all next week. Peace.